So I'm going to show you 5 great lens options to go on your crop sensor camera. I've got a few great options here. I reckon they're going to be very good in a number of scenarios. So what kind of camera am I talking about? If you've got an EF-S mount camera, it refers to your sensor size. So if you have a smaller sensor size, for example, the Canon 7D, 7D Mark II, 20D all the way up to 90D, the 100 series Rebels, the SL1, SL2, SL3, 550 all the way up to 850, the 1000D cameras, all of these cameras accept EF-S lenses. So they're designed to fit onto crop sensor bodies. The thing with these lenses is you can't fit them on a full frame body. However, they work very well if you have a crop sensor camera. And you know I shoot with a number of crop sensor cameras. I've got the Canon 550 which I use regularly. I've got the T7 Canon. I've got the SL3 which is also known as the Canon 250D, and then the full frame cameras. So with those cameras, what are good lenses? I'm going to show you 5 good lens options that I think you should have, and I'll explain the thinking behind them. So the first one, it comes as part of the kit. You will get a kit lens with your cameras, but sometimes you'll notice the kit lens does not offer you everything that you want. For example, this lens here is an EF-S lens. However, it's not got image stabilization. So if I wanted to do handheld video, image stabilization will be quite important so you don't get that little bit of jitter when you're recording a video. So in that example, it may be worthy of looking at another lens which does have IS. So here is exact same option in terms of sizing. So it's still at 18 to 55. However, the STM version of this lens comes with image stabilization. So we're looking at about $250-ish. So if you buy a camera body only, which means it doesn't come with a lens, you can choose to buy your own lens separately, and that is the standard lens they give you. But overall, it performs very well all round. It actually gets you nice wide photographs at 18mm, and when you punch in a bit, you get the telephoto cropped image size, which will be the 55mm, and that works quite nicely in video. And the best thing is it's lightweight compared to bigger, heavier lenses. Example, here we go. That is 24 to 70. The size difference wise, it can affect you in terms of obviously holding a heavier camera. It can be more tricky. That's one. So let's have a look at number 2. Well, I've put something interesting in this part. If you're familiar with aperture and how aperture affects your photograph, this lens, the kit lens, doesn't let in as much light as I would like. If it's a darker situation, or I wanted to get a nice background blur, depth of field, maybe I look at a different lens, which is what brings me on to lens number 2, which is going to be this nice option here, the EF-S 17 to 55 lens. It's from Canon and it has got image stabilization built in. It's not a new lens, however, the combination of a good range of 17 to 55 with a constant aperture of 2.8 with image stabilization makes a nice handheld video lens for your camera. And the good thing here is it's got USM motor, so it's actually quite quiet and quick when it focuses in. What would be another option? Well, something that I'm going to put into the mix is going to be a Yongnuo lens, a lens that I'm actually using, 35mm lens and f2. This is the lens. You can see how it performs right now. So overall, it's a nice option to get you a small sized lens at a constant aperture of f2, and it sticks at 35mm. So class it as a prime lens, which basically means it's got one focal distance. And overall, it works very nicely because you're going to get a nice background blur. You can let in more light into the lens, and it's a nice lens to give you an additional view set at 35mm. So that's number 3. Prime lenses are very good because they let in a lot of light. Now you've got an option here. Canon also do an EF 35mm f2, which is at $600 versus the Yongnuo here, which is $106. What's the difference? While using the Yongnuo, it is a little bit more noisy when it autofocuses. So when you're actually getting autofocusing, it makes a bit of additional noise, which if you're worried about that too much, I would say, especially if you've got a microphone on your camera close to the lens, you will pick that up. So in that example, you've got a choice to get the Canon equivalent. It's a little bit more money, but you're gonna get that build quality of Canon. So that's kind of giving you additional option. Canon EF-S lens. It's designed for the crop sensors again, like we mentioned earlier. And the good thing here is you've got a really wide option, a 10 to 22mm lens. So that's quite wide in the grand scheme of lenses for crop sensors, and you're looking at a region of $650-ish for a camera lens there. It's EF-S lens again, and the good thing here is you can actually get it at 3.5 and 4.5. So that might be a good lens for outdoor photography. If you're doing landscape photography, anything of that kind, then that would be a nice option for you. And that's giving you a few ideas of the types of lenses. However, what about if you're planning to move from crop sensor to full frame at some point? Would it be worth you investing money into a lens that you can use on both bodies? That's something very important, which I've done, and I've brought specific lenses knowing that I've got a full frame camera and an EF-S camera, which is a crop sensor, and I want to be able to change lenses between the cameras. So maybe you need to look at an alternative, which is what I'm going to show you now, and that is a great video option lens, 24 to 105. Now it's a little bit more money compared to the other lenses, however you have got the versatility of when you upgrade to another camera, you keep your lens with you and you can actually use it on a full frame camera. So a full frame camera basically gives you more dynamic range, you've got a bigger sensor which has better depth of field, and overall your quality is pushed up a little bit. So looking at that lens, it's a 24 to 105 f4, so it'll be constant f4 throughout of the camera's focal distance there with that lens. And you have got an L option from Canon, so it's one of the luxury range of Canons. It's IS, so image stabilization is built into that lens as well. So if you're doing handheld video recording, it'll be a great lens. It's got a good range of focus. That would probably be the one lens you need for most things, all the way from 24mm into 105mm. So that would actually work very well, and it'll do very well in most scenarios. So that's a few lenses there. If you haven't bought a camera yet, that would be your next step. So you need to check this out for camera comparisons and think about which camera body you want to buy for the lenses I've talked about. I'll see you on one of these.